Hey everyone, Joe Fox here from Growave. Super excited to welcome you to another episode of the Retain Grow Thrive podcast. I'm joined by Carl Cahill today from Sato, a really cool brand and creative agency based out of the UK. They do a ton of fractional work with a lot of really big brands and agencies, work with a lot of your favorite US agencies, some of them that have actually already been on the podcast. So I'm super excited to welcome you today, Carl. Carl, can you give us a little bit of a background?
Yeah, hi Joe. Thanks for having me on. I've always been a creative. Always worked in the industry as a designer, and I guess my journey really started working as a fractional creative director. I ended up working with kind of a lot of cool agencies. Really wanted to help develop the design teams that they had. And it leads me to today where I've got a great design team behind me, and we really support agencies and brands from both sides of the Atlantic. So yeah, it's been quite cool.
Yeah, you've had a lot of incredible success, I must say. And I really love having incredibly creative people on the podcast, and you're clearly one of them. So thank you again for coming on. Tell me a little bit. I think this podcast will be a really good learning lesson for a multitude of reasons. So I think brands are going to learn a lot about, how to tell their story through brand. So I definitely want to touch on that. And obviously, I think this is a really good opportunity for agencies that might be putting out a lot of websites, but they don't necessarily have that creative talent in-house, and they might, essentially want to work with someone such as yourself. So ideally, I'd love to start from a brand perspective, cover off a little bit of your kind of process, yours and your team's process. Maybe we can talk about a major brand that you've had a win with on that front, if you're allowed to, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd love to kind of steer more onto the partnering with agency side and talk a little bit about the ecosystem a little more.
Yeah. Well, look, for me, I love working with brands, and even working for brands on behalf of other agencies as well, especially when they might not necessarily have all the creative tools or resources. So I love stepping in, helping brands. From design, especially in the world of like commerce, that there's always a way of getting things right from a functional point of view, making things work well, making sure that the site, the store is frictionless, gets people to shop with ease. But a large part that I find is always missing is kind of that brand storytelling piece. We talk a lot about the brand storytelling, but what does that actually mean? And I love working with brands to get to the truth of that. And where we've got like these lovely sites that we're creating, it's about making sure that the messaging's on point, and people that, or your customers, and certainly customers that keep coming back and keep shopping, they fall in love with your brand and they understand and they feel connected with it. And there's so many other ways, great ways of doing that and achieving that, aside to having what is a really functional site. So that's a large part of what I love doing. Is of course making stuff that's performant. It performs as well as it should, and but then there's that whole lovely piece about like working with brands, getting to the truth, understanding what it is that they need to say, how do they get their tribe, from their audience perspective, and keep them coming back, feeling part of something. So the process is pretty simple, or I feel it's simple, but naturally as a creative, I think the best thing to be is always curious, always ask questions, understand what is. And I love like that onboarding journey with a client or an end client, getting to understand and feel, working with them and get to the, like I say, the truth of things. It's fairly simple. I could say it's simple, but the whole creative process is a lovely process, and it's both kind of experimental, which I think is important, but also kind of making sure that what we create together is going to work well, look great, and connect really well with our users.
I love that, Carl. And there's two things there that I can pick up. One is I can tell you're a master of your craft because to you it feels simple. And I can always tell that when someone's dedicated to their craft. And second of all, you know, I can tell that you love what you do. So that's really cool, and you've got a big passion there. I'd love to, you know, obviously I know some brands are a little bit more sensitive than others, but you can anonymize it by talking about, you know, a brand in X industry if you want to. But do you want to give like a bit of a, you know, maybe an example of like a brand that you were working with that may have been around for a little while and they felt that they were like a little bit stale with their brand or they weren't connecting with their audience properly, and just kind of talk around like that thought process or the way that you solve that problem?
So really hard to pick one. The beauty about being a creator is that sometimes, you know, variety is the spice of life, and I love working
Yep.
with lots of different types of clients, and uncovering kind of their challenges in terms of how they want to connect with their audiences. I did recently, I say recently, a great piece of work which was more about like identity, for Brixton, the clothing label. Did like
Nice.
work for
Yep.
shop, stuff like that,
Yep.
which was good. There's a backpack brand called Hyperlight that we did with
Yep.
Roswell, which is really cool. And again, that was all about kind of like making sure that the brand was really, you know, clearly communicated. But then again, there's loads of things from a commerce point of view, like, you know, if you're shopping for a backpack, especially if you're hiking up a massive mountain, like weight was an important thing, and actually that was a big deciding factor in your purchase decision. So like bringing some of those things into what is normal, not normally uh, I guess a shopping experience. It's making sure all of those
Yep.
things are kind of looked after. Calm was another one. I loved it, designing a shop for Calm where it was all about like reducing anxiety and, you know, ensuring that when shoppers come on, they felt, you know, at ease. So
I love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
those are great things. And I love those challenges. And there's so many kind of like behavioral things that, you know, you can think about, other than just kind of whipping up a theme and hoping it sticks. You know, it's just let's make it a bit more exciting. Let's challenge or look at the way we should be talking and helping customers shop with us. So yeah.
I love that, and I'm assuming, and I don't want to make too many assumptions, but I'm assuming with like Calm, that would have been very much about ensuring there's like a really easy to navigate flow and making sure that there's like cool
Yeah.
color palettes that like automatically make the human psyche feel relaxed and stuff like that.
Yeah, there were loads of things like, you know, not flashing, you know, sale signs everywhere, and like, you know, it almost you know, sort of rewrote all the rules there about like how to
Yep.
make people shop faster and quicker. It's like, no, take your time, relax, chill out, you know, make good choices. So yeah, but that was quite a while ago. That project, but it was good fun, and it's a clear one in my mind to make. You know, think about the behaviors on the site and, you know, come through. So that was a good one.
I love that. That's really cool. I love that. I definitely want to pick your brain offline about that because I feel like there's definitely some sites where, you know, you feel like you're walking onto like a used car lot or something like that. And it's like, buy, 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 sell, 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 just discount signs everywhere. And it's like, you know, a sensory
Mm.
overload. And I'm sure maybe, Carl, you feel like this, but I think, you know, as you get older and your you know, tastes are a bit more refined and you kind of know the brands that you're looking for and all of those sorts of things, you kind of want the opposite of that. You kind of almost want that like boutique kind of like experience where it's like, I don't want to see for sale signs. I want to be able to understand more about the product, the feel, how it was produced, and those sorts of things.
Well, yeah, of course. Like, because, you know, people are different now and they shop differently and they want to learn about things, make better informed decisions about what they're purchasing. You know, if they're coming direct, then yeah, certainly. And I think that's important to tap into all those things. Yes, best practice, you know, e-commerce things they exist, and right, we know we're going to help encourage users come back, shop in ways that they're familiar. It's important to make things much more familiar so they can, you know, navigate well and find what they're looking for. But of course, those buying decisions are really important. Like, how much detail do we give around a product? Do we provide, you know, video demonstrations of things? Do we, you know, have to sell other things with there's just so many different ways and areas to look at.
variables. Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. And I think as I said, I think this is a bit of a masterclass on that storytelling side of things and brand and how important all of that is when it comes out creatively. So I'd
Mhm.
love to is there a couple of pointers that might be just some like super quick things that you see a lot of brands, potentially doing that if they just,
Mm.
maybe looked at it from a different lens and from a brand perspective or a creative direction that they could change? I know that's a little bit difficult because obviously you have like a really, a process that you've worked on over a long period of time, but I'm just wondering if there's like, what is one thing that comes to mind that you would recommend to, maybe Shopify brands that aren't quite as established, or even if they are established, it's a common thing that you see.
Well, again, I think it sounds simple, but it's to listen to your customers a lot, right? One of the things I love is, especially with some other brands or business that we work with, like sometimes I love listening to um, telephone conversations with the sales team or customer services and stuff like that to understand what they're saying and how they there's some of those things can really drive really good information about like how we package our stuff online. Listen to customers, think much more about their behavior. So what frictions are in there in if I want to make an informed decision about a purchase that I'm making online, like what are the things that I'm worried about, when making this purchase. A lot of brands get stuck in kind of terminology. I see that a lot. They'll call their product something, but for their audience, they call it something else. Or there's so many things that can, that brands could think about and ask more questions around how do our customers think? How do they shop? I think can be really informative, and it's a really simple exercise. So I love that part of the process, and obviously brands are very naturally passionate about their products, and that comes across very quickly. So I love having that conversation with them because you know what gets them excited, and you really want to capture that excitement and put it out there because yes, customers love that as well. They love big great brands that can you want to draw a relationship and you want to fall in love with brands, right? So let's not give them a stale site that just has no I don't know meaning or anything. Let's give them everything that they want. So I love bringing those putting those connections, making brands and their customers connect better, really. um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And it translates in the work, I must say, because, I had a look through your portfolio and obviously, we both share a friend in Nihar. And I think it's so apparent that the work you and your team do really does translate and create that kind of like love story. And I think
Mm,
it's cool for us on a Growave side of things when we're looking at things from like a loyalty perspective, because it's so much easier for a loyalty program to be really successful when there is a great brand story that's translated really well through a website.
mhm,
Because, you know, like the point I made earlier, if it's a site that just feels like a used car lot and someone's just trying to really sell something incredibly quickly to you, that's not really building any of that brand loyalty or affinity. So when people such as yourself are doing amazing jobs on the creative and really giving that brand identity and design and translating that well, it makes programs such as Growave more successful because it's more likely that someone loves that brand and they want to be a part of that brand and they want to be part of that loyalty journey with that brand. So that's really cool. And also, I think to your point, Carl, the points around like understanding and listening to the customer and everything like that. I think that's really cool. And what we always have our CS team suggest to brands, particularly growing brands, is to really like not just think of the reviews as like a conversion tool, but really
yeah.
think of them as a feedback tool. And, don't take if you get a couple of lower reviews, don't take that as an insult. Take that as an opportunity and a learning opportunity to be able to, one, turn that experience around if it was to do with a negative experience, or if it's customer feedback, maybe you're not translating your product accurately to what the end is, and using that. So I can definitely relate on a few of those points.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's easily forgotten. And I've worked with brands that say, "Oh, we're doing all of this," but in truth, they're not. And I don't think they're listening hard enough a lot of the time. So I find that exciting. It's a great opportunity for creators to come in because, like I say, naturally we're the ones that ask a lot of questions. We're curious and we want to fix those problems. And yeah, I think it's such a necessary part of the process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Carl, I want to touch on this because, we mentioned the Nihar thing. I know you do a lot of fractional work with agencies, and really get in and kind of act as the creative director, or you have your team help out with those sort of things as well. So I'd love to, as I mentioned, a lot of the audience is our partner network. We've got a really, really solid partner network globally, very strong in the US. And a lot of these people are, like Nihar, my friends and close acquaintances and everything like that. And thankfully, they don't get sick of hearing my voice on the podcast. So they often check it out. But I'd love for you to maybe talk a little bit about what that looks like and what success looks like, with these agencies, in the hopes that they can work with you and yeah.
Well, for me, like I say, I started as a fractional creative director, and I love working in our space, in our industry. I think agency is always fun. I love the pace of it. I love the diversity of projects that we get. So it's great. It's a great space. So yeah, working with lots of agencies was great. It's changing. Like we know it's changing, the whole model and the space at the moment. One thing I'm finding is that a lot of agencies are they're reducing their headcount, or they are in favor of outsourcing, right? And that's the simplest way to put it. I like to think of myself as not necessarily a supplier or an outsourced team. We really love to embed and integrate with other agencies because they do what they do really well. We love what we do, and it just feels really nice to fit ourselves in those different spaces. So a lot of the agencies that I work with, and I've got a great team behind me, and in the UK of UK creatives, I love pushing the whole UK creativity side of things. But yeah, for some teams, they don't even have a single designer now, so it's nice to go with them with a kind of like we've got a creative department ready to step right in and work within. We've shaped everything around the agency model, like the needs of those agencies. But yeah, especially for like Nihar and Roswell, I've been working with them on a fractional basis for a very long time now, and they've got their own creative team, which is great. And just love the work that we do for them. Actually, it's fantastic for us. And yeah, I like to think that even from a UK creativity point of view, that there's a lot of value that we can bring across. And really, what I aim to do is just help. That's really the way I really want to fit in. So definitely interested in working with much more partners, especially in the US as well, as we've got quite a few already, and expanding on that. But yeah, I'm here to help, and anybody that kind of wants to push the creative button, I'm there to help push it.
I love that. And I think it's like, to your point, I think there's so many. It's really interesting, and I'm sure you feel the same. But I feel that sometimes, for me, being from Australia, having spent a lot of time, working with Scandinavian companies, working with global companies, working with companies in Asia Pacific, absorbing, kind of a lot of those different cultures and trends, and seeing like, where things are going in certain directions can be such a strong advantage when you're working with, US companies, or say, for example, you're a US company working with a UK company. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry, I'll just pause this. I'll just clap here so that The editor can edit that out. I'm so sorry about that. I thought my phone was on silent. The Sorry, I'll pick that up. So I think that translation sometimes of being able to have these different and differing kind of cultures and differing things and seeing what's emerging in different, kind of cultural trends or business trends or anything like that can translate really well across different countries when you're looking at things and having a completely not a completely new, like necessarily new set of eyes, but it's kind of like being able to look at something from maybe a slightly different cultural aspect can be incredibly helpful, I think. And I'm sure, for with your side of things, Carl, on a design perspective, being able to, see what's really pushing through in the US, pushing through in the UK. Obviously, you're staying abreast of everything from a design perspective globally and seeing what's the trends are coming through. I'm sure that just adds so much value to a brand or to an agency.
I think it's vital, really, especially as a creative, is to draw in different experiences, environments. Like I was saying, I love the variety of work that we do, and I'm sure there are connections between projects that we've done where something has influenced something else, even if it's in a different industry or even a different, it's not necessarily a website. It could be a project that's just, something completely different from a creative point of view. All the time you're drawing these inspirations. I love telling my team, I want you guys to be an annoying toddler. I want you to keep asking questions. Why, just to kind of, you get information that way. And I think it's important to ask that across anything, really. So yeah, I do love the job that I do, because you do get to work with so many businesses, and you get to sometimes, it feels like you ask the stupid questions, but by asking the stupid questions, sometimes you get the right answers. And I love that about what we do, just trying to understand and solve things in a creative way. But yeah, it's very important to draw those inspirations and collect them from anywhere you can. It's important. So I don't try to get siloed. I don't think it's important or good for our team to kind of like tune in and focus on one sector or one specific thing. It's drawing inspirations from lots of different places, test things, experiment, come up with new ideas. And I think that's the only way that you're going to get there.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a cool approach and such a great philosophy. Um, Carl, I'd be remiss to not talk about kind of what we're seeing at the moment, just with AI, machine learning. I don't always like talking about it. It seems like it's kind of an obligatory thing that everyone's talking about, though. And the reason I wanted to bring it up is because I've spoken to like different agencies that might focus on things like SEO or ads or social or anything like that, but I haven't had a discussion with anyone of your caliber on a design front on what AI is doing currently to the industry, where it's heading, and all of those sorts of things. I personally think that the soul of design is not translated in any way, shape, or form in AI. That's my personal opinion. I just think it's incredibly difficult to get the same feeling from content, whether it's written or designed visually, that I do. I feel like I have a very good eye and a very good. I can pick it out a mile away, and it instantly, unfortunately, puts up a bit of a barrier for me. I do think it's becoming personally less and less. It's harder and harder to tell almost every day that goes on as these technologies improve. But I'd love to hear from someone of your caliber who's so heavily focused and a master in design. What do you see coming, and what challenges are you facing with AI at the moment?
Yeah, I got a lot to add to this, actually. So I think it's really, I think it's a great space that we're in, right? And I think even now that the value of creativity it's been devalued a little bit, right? People are producing their own stuff, but I think there's a lot of lessons that are being learned now. We've had clients that have kind of slowly moved away from us in favor of doing things for themselves because they can. And some of those are actually coming back because They are
Yeah.
producing middle of the road stuff, and they're not happy with the value of what they're producing. And so the value of creativity is come back. I'm pretty optimistic about it. Like, I think this is never been a better time really for creatives to step up and show the value of good creativity again. And but in the same way, there's a lot of things that we've adapted and changed. Some of our processes and tools are much more faster and much more efficient and much better as well. And I think I don't want to sacrifice good human thinking in our process, and especially creative thinking. Like getting to the answer quick. Like everyone suddenly feels like everyone needs to do things quicker, but that's not necessarily true with everything, right? Let's sometimes slow down and let's embrace kind of opportunities, directions and experiments and other ways of doing things. Because it's too easy to settle on one answer very quickly because we've chucked it in an LLM and it's telling us what we need to do. So we better do that. I think, like I say, we've molded and we've adapted and we're doing great things. It's helped a lot. But I think the value of creativity, it's never been a better time. And I think, perhaps from maybe other agencies and peers that I've been working with, I think we need to stop like commoditizing what we do and a little bit, and just bring back some of that value because there's so much more that we can do. And I think we're getting there. I think I've seen conversations shift a little bit. So I'm not worried. I think I'm more excited about it all. I think we can do some great things now. It's just not sacrificing that human thinking. I think is the most important thing. A human in the loop all the time. Let creatives be creatives. We're not defined by our tools, right? So we've used Figma for a long time. So like because I can't use that tool anymore doesn't mean I'm not a creative anymore. I'm a creative thinker. I can visualize what I want. I can visualize what we need to do. Just using a different tool set is creatives should be using different tools all the time. That's the beauty about what we do. So yeah,
I love that approach, Carl, and I agree, and I think we share the same thinking on that. I don't think AI can ever replace that level of creativity. I just don't ever see it happening. I think that's what truly separates, humans from robots, really. So that's my thoughts. And I'm really glad to hear that is the approach that a lot of, brands are having, is that they're kind of realizing, oh, we can't do everything with AI and we need creative and we need soul and we need, these things for our brand. So makes me happy to hear that. And I very much value your opinion there.
No, it's all right. We've seen a lot of disasters out there, and with some of the brands that we work with, maybe they've gone on experimented, but they come back, and or some of them are like, right, we'd love to continue doing this ourselves. How can you best advise us and help us? And like that's fine as well. That's a conversation worth having because ultimately I think brands are trying to think smarter and brings things in house sometimes, and that's fine. I happily support that. It's just making sure that there's no disconnect with like them producing stuff they're not happy with. Like there's always an opportunity to improve things, make things better, and come up with new ideas. And I think we shouldn't just avoid that, as being an opportunity. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Carl, look, I've really enjoyed this conversation. The 30 minutes has absolutely flown by. I feel like
It really
there's,
has.
I really enjoy these conversations with creative deep thinkers such as yourself. So thank you so much. This has been personally really enjoyable for me. And I'm sure the audience has gained a lot of value out of this, from your wealth of experience and everything that you're working on. And I know a lot of agencies will be reaching out to you because, as we both spoke about earlier, Niha's fantastic and Roswell's fantastic, and the work you're doing with them is absolutely fantastic. So that's a testament in itself, as well as obviously all the amazing work you and the team are doing. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time, Carl. And lastly, where is the best place for people to connect with you, to keep up to date with everything that you guys are doing, and essentially to be able to connect with you if they would like to continue conversations?
Yeah, I mean, all the regular channels, LinkedIn probably best for me. So yeah, Salo Creative .uk is our site, but yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always there. So yeah, definitely happy to speak to other agencies or brands that certainly just want to amplify their creativity. That's what I'm here for. So yeah, reach out.
Absolutely. Awesome. Carl, thank you so much again. Really, really appreciate it, man. And yeah, let's just definitely keep in touch. I'll be keeping a very close eye on the work you're doing, and please let me know when you're in Austin next. It'd be fantastic to catch up in person. But thank you so much again for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, it's been good fun. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Audience, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Retain, Grow, Thrive. Carl is an absolute sensational creative person. I really, really enjoyed that conversation. I think the work they're doing is incredible. If you're an agency that feels that they're lacking a little bit of that creativity with some of the brands they're working with, I really, really encourage you to reach out to Carl. His LinkedIn profile is linked in the show notes. And if you're a brand that's sort of sitting there questioning, should I be going down this route? Should I be going down this route? And you want some more creativity injected into your brand, please reach out as well. Thank you so much. And I'll see you again on the next episode.